first glimpse, you might notice white sands and a sea full of beauty. But if you take a closer look, the white sands are made up of fish bones, the sea full of toxic runoff. And while these health hazards may potentially spread throughout Southern California, believe it or not, the Salton Sea used to be an ideal getaway. Oh, the Salton Sea. Between the 1950s and 60s, real estate was booming. It was referred to as a miracle in the desert. It attracted over 500,000 visitors annually, including celebrities like the Beach Boys and Sonny Bono. But this so-called miracle was created by accident through diverted runoff from the Colorado River. The water soon became saltier than the ocean by being fed solely agricultural runoff. Botulism poisoning killed millions of fish, and the massive die-offs, along with the sea full of pesticides and heavy metals, soon took their toll. Needless to say, tourists fled, and now researchers are examining the damage where people still live.
Animals or wildlife can be seen as, indicators of how healthy the environment is.
Jill Johnston and Sheree Farzan, both assistant professors at USC's Department of Health, are studying the health effects from the Salton Sea's toxic dust.
So we became interested because they were worried about more dust in the area. So we just started looking into some of the health issues in the area. And so there's very high levels of particulate matter and also very high levels of childhood asthma.
And as the Salton Sea's water level decreases over time, the level of dust rises, causing more health problems, especially among kids.
People need to have the power to be able to determine whether they can walk outside or stay indoors to protect themselves.
Luis Almedo, executive director of Comité Cívico de Valle, grew up in the Imperial Valley and believes something must be done about the area's poor air quality. His organization helps provide schools, agricultural workers, and other residents with real-time air quality updates.
Children between middle school age, they're at the biggest threat because their lungs haven't fully developed, their activities are increasing, they're ingesting more air.
But the destruction of the Salton Sea isn't just plaguing the Imperial Valley. A Supreme Court ruling agreed to a water transfer deal that went into effect last year. Water is now being taken out of the Salton Sea and given to areas like San Diego for drinking water and residential use. Researchers say it could be detrimental. Reports indicate if the Salton Sea dries up, toxic dust will be unleashed into the air all throughout Southern California, risking the health of millions.
And it's really fine dust. It's laden with chemicals from agricultural runoff, such as pesticides, toxic metals. There have been studies showing that there are things like DDT and arsenic and other heavy metals in that sediment.
There are some plans for mitigation efforts for, ways to try to restore some of this dry lake bed, but, there needs to be a lot of action very quickly to not have a consequence on people's health.
Part of Proposition 68 on the California ballot this coming June would set aside $200 million for the Salton Sea. However, Almedo says fixing the issue here will take billions.
Right now, the most critical thing to do with these monies is to stabilize the sea. We cannot pull back that tombstone because it'd be certain, death for people here in the Imperial Valley.
Well, there's more than 100 years of toxic buildup here at the Salton Sea. As the water continues to recede, more toxic dust will be exposed into the environment unless something is done. Embracing spring to the fullest, many Russian descendants are gathering here at Fort Ross to celebrate Willow Sunday. And while it may still be a little chilly here off the Northern California coast, people here say it brings them even closer to being back home. A step back in time, embracing the ancient Russian culture at Fort Ross. From handmade clothing, cooking from scratch, and of course singing, these groups of Russians bring their children to this self-sustaining camp at Fort Ross to experience what their history is all about. And a part of that is celebrating Willow Sunday.
And this will bring the luck, the health, the prosperity, all the good wishes that it was believed that this tree has an energy of the spring coming alive.
Equivalent to Palm Sunday, taking place a week before Easter, Russians celebrate Willow Sunday as palms don't grow on their native land.
So this was the giving of strength to still hold on through cold winter months. even though it is spring, but it could be still almost like a winter in Russia.
Natalia Marschka left Russia at the age of 30 with her 2 children and has been in the States for nearly 20 years. To her, passing on the ancient Russian heritage to the younger generations gives her life purpose, and that includes keeping the tradition of Willow Sunday alive year after year.
I think everyone just gets a whole new wave of energy.
Julia Bolotova moved to the U.S. 5 years ago and has been coming to Fort Ross, her home away from home, at least 4 times a year.
This is like one of my favorite places to visit because you can really feel like it's the calming and there's the ocean near us.
And for Maria Paraversovo, who was born in the U.S., says her first language was Russian.
I didn't learn English till I went to school.
And Polina Zinin, also born in the U.S., says she enjoys breaking away from her normal routine as a teenager to experience what her ancestors did long ago.
It's also kind of nostalgic, I would say, since here you have a really plain way of living, and it's simple and it's beautiful that way.
The girls all agree singing is a huge staple in their culture. It's something that keeps them connected to their roots, even being so far away. Some call it a gift from Mexico to the rest of the world. There's only one region on the globe where authentic tequila is produced, and now a potential shortage could cost you. Walking into Casablanca restaurant in Venice, a tequila shortage isn't something that would come across your mind. In fact, the restaurant offers 700 different types of tequilas to try.
The number one question here is, what is the best tequila?
The fact of the matter is, there's only one region on the globe where agave is produced, so there's only so much to go around.
It surprised me.
Owner Carlos Otto says he's not seen any price or selection changes from his producers.
For the moment, I feel it's only rumors.
But the shortage of agave is anything but rumors. Javier Martinez, who was born into the business of producing tequila, says the shortage is very real.
7 years ago, we have too much agave. The price collapsed. Tequila producers were paying 3 pesos per kilo for agave. Now they are paying 22 pesos per kilo.
But now other uses for the plant, including agave syrup and mezcal, as well as the desire for pure tequila, is causing some producers to use the agave plant when it's premature. Martinez says when it comes to the shortage, producers are willing to take a loss.
All the companies I'll prefer to keep the customers, lose money for 2-3 years, and then try to recoup once the agave prices comes to an acceptable level.
And some producers are feeling the effects of the shortage already.
2 years ago, this bottle is sold at the bars at $7.99. 10% of this was the agave price. Right now, it's almost 50% of that is agave.
But the reason producers are just swallowing the lack of profit is there's just too many customers in the U.S. And since tequila only makes up 6% of the spirits used in the country, producers don't want to take their chances.
Tequila went from being the cheapest alcohol that you can buy quickly to get drunk, quickly and wasted, to be a very prestigious drink.
And now with celebrities like George Clooney in the tequila business, the U.S. has surpassed Mexico in tequila consumption.
It's now 15 million cases of consumption here in the United States. 20 years ago when I was here, it was probably 1/3 of that.
Now the people knows more about the tequilas and asking more about the better product, better tequilas like 100% tequilas.
And now producers expect to lose out on profits for the next 2 to 3 years while their supply of agave is replenishing. While some viruses are more harmful than others, they certainly know how to play tricks on the body's immune system. And now new technology and research in the works may help uncover how certain viruses are hiding in the body's most vulnerable spots, attacking human diseases better and faster at a rate science has not seen before. It's one of Erica Ullman Sapphire's main goals. World-renowned pandemic expert and professor at the La Jolla Institute of Immunology, Ullman Sapphire was on the forefront in developing vaccines for the first batch of Ebola virus outbreaks. Published this week in Nature Structural and Molecular Biology, Ullman Sapphire and her team share part of their 3-year effort in developing a vaccine from an Ebola survivor's antibody.
We can't be working and figuring out how to cure the last outbreak. We need to learn how to cure this outbreak now.
But finding a vaccine, let alone a cure, is quite a process, especially since viruses are so complex.
Viruses are complicated for 2 reasons. One is if they're constantly mutating and changing, there could be a million different varieties. And yeah, we could confer one or another, but coming up with a vaccine or a treatment that could be applicable against every single kind of HIV or every single kind of common cold is hard.
Hard to develop, but Ullman Sapphire firmly believes cures are out there and very possible to achieve. A first big step, high-resolution imaging from cryo-electron microscopes. The images will provide a precise anatomical understanding of what these pathogens are made of. It'll also equip scientists with the ability to see what these viruses have in common.
Our microscopes used to show us blurry images, and when we try to get a high-resolution view, it would take us years. Well, now we can do it in weeks.
These microscopes won't just help in developing vaccines for viruses, but also cancer and diabetes. But Ullman Sapphire isn't just a scientist to be found in the lab. She and her team have been making the rounds in Congo.
The current Ebola virus outbreak is in a conflict zone. And so treatment facilities have been attacked, others have been burned. It's very difficult to get in there to do the work that's needed.
Despite the challenges, Ullman Sapphire and her team continue to survey those infected with Ebola to see what type of Ebola virus they may be carrying, as well as their reaction to treatment. With the incoming arrival of the new technology, Ullman Sapphire believes it's an exciting time in the world of science.
Early on in my career, when I sent the platoon script to get some Pentagon help in the Philippines, they wrote back that we had to really rethink Vietnam. Having been there as a frontline soldier, of course, I objected to all their objections. And not only that, they put out an order in the Philippines. They put out not an order as much as a desist kind of memorandum to their commanders saying that the troops should not cooperate with this movie. Same thing happened to us on Born on the 4th of July a few years later. And it also happened, ironically, in the National Football League when we made Any Given Sunday. The NFL gave an advisement to the team owners that their players should not cooperate with us. So I've been against, I've seen the bureaucratic mentality up close.
It's a time of year that so many of us remain on high alert. And now the Los Angeles rail system will be the first in the country to implement body scanners. Officials say these body scanners will be able to detect explosive devices, including suicide vests and large firearms. Behind New York and Chicago, Los Angeles transit system is the 3rd largest in the U.S. Roughly 1.3 million people take LA's bus and rail system every day. And there's no doubt security is front and center at Union Station in downtown Los Angeles.
Yeah, security at Metro is our #1 priority.
Dave Sotero, spokesman for the LA County Metro, says they've undergone a pilot program for the past year with the Transportation Security Administration looking for the best screening technology. They decided on a system called Through Vision.
And it enables us to screen numerous people as they come into this transit station without interrupting their progress to getting to the train and getting to work or wherever they're going.
And according to the company, this wave technology is nothing like what you see at airports. In fact, it doesn't emit any radiation.
Your body is the transmitter and we're the receiver. So by doing that, we can look at the items that are blocking that energy coming back, so we don't have to radar you or ping you with any energy to measure that.
Sotero says LA buses and rail systems will keep these screenings random.
We're going to be moving the system around based on intelligence.
While Sotero says 9/11 isn't the sole reason behind these body scanners, it does add an extra layer of protection for the public. With plans of an additional 34 miles of metro expansion in the works, Sotero says riders can expect to see these body scanners through LA's rail system by the end of the year. Fish consumption is on the rise, but overfishing as well as changes in the environment, including pollution, have caused salmon populations to dwindle. And some may wonder if unconventional salmon will make up the diets of fish eaters. When it comes to cooking, Mario Medina, who's been an executive chef for the past 12 years, says he prefers a more natural approach to his dishes.
You can see difference between farm and wild.
Working in the restaurant industry for the past 25 years, Medina says there's no question customers are concerned whether or not their fish is farmed or wild.
A lot of my customers, my guests, come to my place and ask me about it's fresh or it's from the farm or it's wild. And when I say farm, the people say, no, thank you very much.
And Medina thinks he knows why. Why do you think it's more popular?
Flavor.
Farm salmon is commonly referred to as Atlantic salmon, which is an easier sell on the menu. A difference in texture and artificial dye, Medina says farm salmon needs to have more flavor added to recipes.
When it's wild, you can put salt and pepper, grill, pan-sear, bake, and there's flavor in there because it's automatically have flavor. Then when it's farm, but there's a lot of chemics, you need to put extra sauce, you need to put a lot of things on this fish.
As fish consumption is up, a shortage of salmon is causing wild caught to be pricier than farmed salmon. In fact, researchers are in a 12-month review process specifically looking at the Northwest Chinook salmon population. Once the most abundant fish in the Northwest, some local tribes argue dams are hurting the migration of the fish. While farmed and wild salmon are the two choices now, a third option, genetically modified salmon, was approved for consumption in the U.S. back in 2015. A spokesperson for the Massachusetts-based company behind genetically modified salmon, AquaBounty, confirmed to RT labeling was not required when the FDA originally approved our salmon in November of 2015. However, the FDA issued a warning in January of 2016 banning the import and sale of the salmon until labeling guidelines are established. Interestingly enough, AquaBounty makes its genetically modified fish from a growth hormone from a Chinook salmon gene, the type of salmon that may be in danger. In the meantime, AquaBounty has sold some 5 tons of genetically modified fish to Canada, and the Canadian government confirms while other genetically modified food must be labeled, AquaBounty salmon is not. As the statement says, no health and safety concerns were identified. In the meantime, smell, texture, color, and taste will indicate if the salmon you're eating is Atlantic or wild caught. In Los Angeles, Natasha Sweet, RT.